Welcome to Red Talk with Reginald D. I'm your host, Reginald D. On today's episode, we'll have Robert Irvine. Today's guest is someone you may have seen on TV. He's a world-class chef and a television personality. Robert is famous for Dinner Impossible and Restaurant Impossible on Food Network. Robert is also an entrepreneur and fitness guru, but his impact reaches far beyond the kitchen. Robert is a longtime supporter of our military, a veteran himself, and a driving force behind the Robert Irvine Foundation, which serves veterans, first responders, and their families through food, wellness, and community support. He's also the author of multiple cookbooks and a leadership book, Overcoming Impossible, which is focused on resilience, teamwork, and overcoming impossible odds. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Well, Reginald, or can I call you Reggie now? Because now we're friends. Now, after the opening, I can't follow that. So thank you for having me.
Okay, you can call me Reggie. I'm all good with that. So, Robert, can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what your childhood was like?
So I grew up in a little place you may call England on the south coast. Well, actually, in the mid-north is where I grew up originally, Manchester, in a kind of very working-class family. My mother was a bartender. My father worked various jobs after coming out of the military. We moved to a place called Salisbury, Wiltshire, which, as the crow flies, probably 300 miles. And my life as a young man really started there because my father met somebody in a pub, which we're very famous for in England, by the way, who was an old chief petty officer in the Navy who asked me to join the Sea Cadets, and I did. Loved it, went away all my life, a young age until the age of 15 when I joined Her Majesty's Royal Navy, meaning I took the test. I couldn't actually join until I was just before 16 years old, but I signed the papers at 15 and a half years old. My mother had to co-sign because I was still a child, quote unquote. And I joined the Navy at a very early age and I fell in love. You know, food for me was, or school for me, I should say, was interesting because I hated school except history, woodwork, sports, and home economics. The rest, throw away.
Yeah, like me.
I wasn't good at it. I didn't enjoy it. I loved the sportsmanship. I loved the creating things like the woodwork and the metalwork and the food. But I was not a good English, even to this day, when I'm on social media, people know it's me because it's, direct lines with no punctuation or full stops or anything in it. And they know it's me. And I make no bones about, you know, there's a lot of what I call police officers online, right? And they know you don't spell correctly, you don't do this correctly. I'm like, well, shoot me for it, I mean, sorry, I can't be perfect at everything.
Right. It is what it is, right?
Yeah. But at least you know it's me and not some computer or something doing something.
Exactly. So, Robert, let's go back to this. You grew up in a working class household in England where money was tight.
Very
How
tight.
did that season shape your discipline, hunger, and mindset? How did that make you long before success even showed up?
Well, I can tell you this. You talk about poor, my father was almost an alcoholic. Some would say he was, but I would say almost. My mother and father divorced young. They separated, and my father would live in his car outside of my grandmother's house. And then eventually my grandmother threw us out and we had nowhere to go. I was homeless. We lived under a bridge for a while. So I know what poor is. I know what cold is. I know what hungry is. We then got a council house, which is kind of like government housing, basically. And my mother is 83 years old. And she still lives in that same household that we've lived there for 52 years, and she still pays rent every week for that house. As much as I've tried to buy that house and my brother and sisters. So growing up, it was very, very tough, but we didn't have, and I relish this, and I tell this story all the time. We didn't have bikes. We had secondhand clothes from Oxfam or what you call Goodwill here. We didn't have that much to eat. We didn't have the bikes, and we didn't have all those foo-foo stuff, right? And I'm not crying wolf either, by the way. It taught me a great lesson, and that lesson was this. You got to work for everything you get, and you got to protect everything you have, right? And that doesn't mean things. I mean people. So I grew up at a young age. And by the way, my father and mother divorced when I was 6 years old. They never left each other. And he died at 72, asking my mother every Sunday to remarry him. And she never did. By the way, she never got any death benefits, no insurance, no nothing when he passed away. So it's kind of a romantic love story, I suppose you would say. But an interesting growing up. My brother was in the army. My father was in the army. My sister ran Glasgow Airport for a while. My other sister married a soldier, emigrated to Australia. He's now a senior enlisted in the Australian Army, and they still live there. So, what did I learn from that? Protection of great things and people, work hard ethic, thinking about other people and where things come from and how much things cost, and not wasting. There's so many lessons in there. But one was being thankful for A, food, B, a quilt, to keep warm, C, a roof over your head, and a loving family. You could never say we didn't have a loving family. We always did. Did we have everything that other families had? No, nowhere close. So I think that give all of us, not just me, but my brother is 18 months older than me, my two sisters that are 18 months between us. So there's 18 months literally between every one of us. It give us a hard work ethic, no woe is me, just get it done and do what you need to do. And oh, by the way, there's no free rides. You're not going to play, you're going to work. I was stocking shelves at 11 years old and trying to make money. So,
Yeah, we have a lot of company because I grew up in a single parent home with just my mom and my little sister. My mom worked 3 jobs, man, and we still sometimes couldn't make ends meet. Sometimes the lights went off. It wasn't a storm outside when it went off.
yeah,
It was like we could pay the bill. So I know what you experienced. I had to get a job at 13 years old
yeah.
and still go to school and still do this and try to help out with bills. And I think that's what drove me to who I am today and how I look at life. Like you said, you either gonna cry for me or you're gonna do something about it.
Yeah, I think the interesting part, I was not good at school. I would drink my dad's beer. I would look like I would go to school, wait my mother on a bus to go to work. And I would double back with friends, drink my dad's beer. And one day she called the house. I answered the phone. Demise of Robert Irvine, straight down to recruitment office. And I loved the discipline of the military. I used to go away with sea cadets every weekend to warships and bases and Marine bases. And I fell in love with the uniform, the service above self aspect of it, which I didn't really understand at that point, but I loved the whole shebang of a uniform, marching, being something bigger than yourself. And I fell in love with that. So when I joined the military, I was not a good team player. I was an individual because I've been taught to be an individual and take care of, yourself as we all are. Oh, well, I think most of us are. And my boss, who was a Navy chief, came to me one day and my uniforms were perfect. My boots were my bed. I mean, I was squared away at a young age. And he said to me, I'm going to throw you out of the Navy because you're not helping the others. And I'm like, dude, I'm 16 years old and they're 26 and 29. You're throwing me out because my bed's made and they're not. And he really explained to me, what does teamwork mean? And I was like, well, I'm not doing it. So anyway, long story short, at 2 o'clock in the morning, after that talking to, I turned the lights on, put everybody out of their beds on the floor, and they all went crazy. I'm like, now I'm going to teach you. I won't tell you what I said, but you're going to, grow up. I don't care whether you're to an Ivy League college. I don't care if you're going to be an officer. You're in here with me, and there's 12 of us, and we have to live, eat, and breathe like one. Show them how to press the uniform, clean the boots, make the beds, march, run obstacle course. I mean, you name it, Reggie. It was a 16-year-old taking on the world of 11 other people to be better than everybody else. And that's how I am today.
Hey, that's what it's about. That's what it's about.
Yeah, some people don't like that, though.
No, really, they don't. So, Robert, you shared a story about your mother's sacrifices, like buying you weights when
Yeah.
money was scarce.
Yeah.
What did that teach you about belief and being supported before you were known?
Well, here's the funny thing. Let me kind of step back just slightly. When my mother and father got back together again and never remarried, but we lived together in a rented home, I would go to church on a Tuesday and a Saturday and a Sunday. And my parents were never big faith-based people. And they still are not today, by the way. I still am very faith-based and driven. So I grew up in, going to cornfields and all that kind of stuff with other kids through the church. And I tried to get my parents involved, and it never was going to happen. It still hasn't happened. And she's 83 years old now, so that's never going to happen. But I think for me, the discipline of the military, the church piece, believing in something bigger, and there is a plan. And, it's so funny. I laugh all the time. Oh, yeah, we know what we're going to do tomorrow. No, we don't know what we're going to do. We think we know what we're going to do tomorrow. But it's already predetermined, predestined. People can argue with that till the cows come home. I read the Bible. I read history a lot. I love the history piece. But we repeat history over and over and over again. We never learn from mistakes. And that's what I'm trying to do with my life, is use my platform to change the things that have been wrong for many years. And by the way, we can sit here and drink a beer or a cup of coffee for 24 years and still not touch half of the points, right? But I believe in that. And I believe that's what shaped the way I run my companies, the way we deal with our associates, our employees, the way I lead, the way they lead me, because they do. I don't think leadership is a one-way street at all. And I think the military taught me that a long time ago. I was a young sailor telling older people with big ranks what to do, and I'm still doing it. But I think the military and faith, and I'm not a big guy that I give thanks to God for everything that we do. It doesn't mean I go to church every week. It doesn't mean, I'll go in a corner and pray, or I'll sit in a sauna and pray, or I do the things that I do for me. I don't need anybody else to be there. And people know what I do. They know who I am. So I think that comes from childhood. I think that comes from military and from my youth pastor.
Yeah. So your father didn't initially support you when it came to cooking as a career. Do you think your drive came more from the passion or from needing to prove you were worthy to do it?
So my father felt that when I joined the Navy, first of all, that was a slap in the face for him because my brother and him were in the Army. I'd been a sea cadet. I loved the ocean. I loved what I was doing. Fell in love with the Navy. I took the test. It was 5-5. English, 5 being the lowest, 1 being the highest. Maths, 5 being the lowest, 1 being the highest. I got 5-5. They said, you're going to be a cook. I went elated because I love cooking, because I started a home economics class with 30 girls and me. I thought, oh, good, I get a girlfriend. I made a quiche Lorraine. I didn't get a girlfriend. And here I am. I'm joining the Navy as a cook, which he thought I was crazy. I fell in love with it, and I'm still madly in love with it. My father, on the other hand, disowned me pretty much for about 2 years. Wouldn't talk to me. I went up to my basic training. And you have to understand, from the age of 11 years old, I'd been traveling around the world on my own. School sent me on a cruise line in Malta around the Mediterranean for 4 weeks, to school, to work, learning. I've been traveling independently for a long time. So just under my 16th birthday, going to my first duty station, I was like, yeah, this is going to be easy, right? This is what you do, right? And I found it easy. The hard part for me, and I'm still conquering it, by the way, the hard part for me is me working hard and somebody else taking the credit for it. And I still fight with that a lot, even though I'm now a great team player. We have a lot of employees and whatnot. I don't fight about their wins because they are their wins. But when somebody takes credit for something they didn't do, and I know somebody else did it, I call them out. They don't like it. And that's a lot of what I do. And that's why people don't like Robert Irvine sometimes, because if you did it, Reggie, then you get the kudos and the team that worked with you to get that done. Nobody should be taking your kudos away from you when you did all the work. That's that protection thing. And I'm like that in my world life. I'm like that when I'm with senior leaders of military, with Fortune 500 companies, with CEOs of major billion-dollar companies, of which, we're part of a lot. But I think it all goes back to childhood. The people say bad behavior starts with single parent. Well, no, that's wrong. It doesn't. Sorry, I disagree with that. And I hear that all the time. And I'm the one that sounds like, I'm like, well, look, I came from that. So, yeah, my mom and dad were divorced and they got back together again. But my father was not loving that I became a cook, because in England, that's servitude, right? You're serving somebody. And it was only when I got a job working for Flag Officer Portsmouth, which is a two-star admiral, taking care of his family. And one day he asked my mother, would she like to come to a garden party? Well, we're the poor people, we're the people that don't come to garden parties, we're not them people. And I was horrified. I thought my mom would do really well, but I didn't invite my dad. And then my dad actually shows up, who was in the version I said this earlier on, I love to drink. And I'm like, oh God, this is my future. This is my admiral. This is, my demise. And it rained. I never forget it, like it was yesterday. It rained. We used to grow all our vegetables because he was an old soul. He used to smoke a pipe like Popeye, the admiral. And I would grow potatoes and broccoli and green beans, and we would pick the garden, and I would cook for him and his wife. And then he showed up, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm being kicked out of the Navy because my dad is going to do something really stupid. And they got on like a house on fire. And he changed. He became called to be a cook. There's something in the air change. I don't know. It was just weird to see 1 minute the despise and don't talk to me because you should be like your brother in the army, not cook, serving people. And here I am serving somebody, and now it's okay. It was a real mind game for me.
Right. I guess it's all about who you were serving, right?
Yeah, but I went on to work on the Royal Yacht, and I went on to do all these things with, presidents. And my father was alive, obviously. Here, I cooked for 5 presidents. My mother got to be with the presidents, most of them, and my father, and they couldn't believe that food could take you from where it grew to where we are now, and the whole journey. I mean, it's not always smooth, right? There's a journey, as I said, that we don't pick. Somebody else picks it, bless them. And I say this all the time, Reggie. I think God gives you as much as you can handle and gets you ready for the next thing. And I say that all the time, and people look at me, oh, you said God. I'm like, yeah, I said God. But these things that happen are meant to test you to see if you can handle whatever's next. In my belief, anyway.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. That's the way I believe. You know, he doesn't take you to the next step. He gives you one level. This is what I'm giving you. If you handle that well, then he open up doors to the next level, to the
Yep.
next level, to the next level. Now, if you can't handle the first level, you're gonna stay there.
God, we're like brothers from another mother.
I
Believe
know
me.
it, man.
I teach I do a lot of military stuff, obviously, but I teach young soldiers, sailors, airmen, guardians, the same thing. Like, do your time, learn as much as you can, and listen. Stop talking. Don't go out and buy that 500-inch TV when you get your first paycheck and da 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 da. They're going to do it anyway, but nobody listens to that advice. It's weird to me. And I said, well, if you want to be successful, you may want to listen.
Right. Exactly. So, Robert, now let's go to this. You're currently involved in a new project, a military project, revamping Army food. What problem did you immediately recognize that needed to be fixed?
Well, this is not, first and foremost, this has taken me 15 years. So I've been in the country. I came in 1996, end of 96. Worked with Donald Trump at casinos and cruise ships and all these other things. So I've designed cruise ships, developed cruise ships, open hotels, closed restaurants, all those kind of things that put me in where I am today. When I first started going on the USO trips, I would see the food and I was like disgusted that we're asking, and we're talking 15 years ago, right? 15, 16 years ago. We're asking these young men and women, which were, 16 years ago, young men and women to do things, and we're feeding them garbage. And I started on this journey, and every 4 years we would change leadership. The Secretary of Defense would change, the Chairman of Joint Chiefs, the Chief of the Army, every 4 years. So just when I think I'm getting somewhere, start all over again. Um, but I never gave up, and I've never given up. And it's been my life goal to change and transform, is the better word, change and transform all the branch feeding, meaning Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and Guardians. So I found out that there was some people like-minded like me, like the Chief of the Army, Randy George, Chris Mohan from Army Materials Command, Michelle Donahue, again, 3 stars, 4 stars, whatever. And I needed their backup because, look, little old me, I make extra living, right? I'm going to go in there and tell you how to run your army and buy your food and whatever. And we actually got legislative change December the 24th of last year on a very big change for the military. And we're in the middle right now. So we've designed menus. We've looked at the way the dining cities look, the way the tables, the chairs. Everything is like a triple A athlete's collegiate style feeding. It's unbelievable. The first one, so I opened a test site a year and a half ago at Fort Jackson, which got a lot of press, New York Times, CBS, because I told them that we could do it differently and have a different outcome. Well, big armies, big army and government, and you know how that goes. But I kept persisting. We changed. We got 5 big bases. We're in the middle of opening right now. Fort Jackson opened first. Fort Hood opens in Texas on the 18th of February, I believe. And then on the 24th or 26th, we open Fort Lee in Virginia, which is the Army School of Excellence, which all the branches learn how to cook for admirals and generals and so on and so on. We'll open 5 in the next 4 months. And then at the end of March, we'll announce the next 20. And we're moving very rapidly. And I'm hoping that the Army and the Air Force follows the legislative change that we managed to get for the Army. And I will tell you, I am just a piece of that. There are thousands of lawyers and legislators and Army officers and cooks. And the problem we don't have enough people. Nobody wants to cook anymore. So how do we feed our servicemen and women and our first responders and school kids? And that's the next thing so along with feeding and modernizing the military, we're looking at the SNAP benefits. I'm in the middle of it right now, where I believe that with a company called R4, that we can save the government $100 billion for $100 million spent. Wow. And give 4 times the SNAP benefits of real food, not junk, not sodas and Doritos and Cheetos and all that. Really good food that you can cook at home, but 4 times the benefits. So instead of 300, 1,200. And we can utilize the waste of food that we have in this country, which is, if I told you numbers, you would freak out, and utilize it better and distribute it better using AI to tell us where is that food needed the most and where do we need to put that and how do you access it through your phone, but without giving you, I don't mean this against Coke or Pepsi but all those things that, come on. If you want to live a healthy life, let's get you real chicken. Let's get you real vegetables. Let's get you real instead of all this processed garbage, So my next segment to that is, so we got feeding in the military at bases, the SNAP benefits at home, or this military smart feeding program, which is SNAP for the military, but it's SNAP on the outside as well. And then looking at how do we feed in school kids? Because, I think RFK has the right idea, but it's not one thing. It's not just taking red dye number 6 out. It's the way we produce food, the way we grow food, the way we distribute food, the way we educate people from low-income families that, look, if you're from Alabama, you're from Kentucky, you're from England, you're from Somalia, I don't care where you're from, you still got to eat. So how do we take that food, show you what to do with it in your native tradition, right? Because culture is a huge part of food success. People think of England, fish and chips and St. Kidney pie. Well, there's actually more to it than that, but that's what I grew up on. but there's better food. So that whole process of military modernization, and again, a small piece of that, there are, Randy George and these people I've mentioned, the chief of the army, Sec Army, Dan Driscoll, they're really into now, it's not just the planes and trains and drones, and it's the people. And we have made so much headway thanks to Secretary Driscoll and some other folks, RFK and whatever. And I feel that if we give kids better school food, I've seen it. There's a school I'm a part of in Wilmington, North Carolina. It's a private school for underprivileged kids. There's 400 girls, 400 boys, and they get taught things like how to cook, how to sew, how to knit, how to darn, how to take care of yourself, how to run financials, but also everything else you get taught at school. So I know it can be done. I know we can feed them properly. There's gardens in these schools. There's, like Michelle Obama. I remember doing a show with her about making a garden in a school in Washington, D.C., and these kids didn't know what a tomato or a potato was. How bad is that in a country that we live in? We're not a third world country.
Right.
We got to do better. And I just want to be a small piece of that being better because I think I've got answers. I've just got to, meet a few people up with the answers because they got to listen, and it's not about money, because when you say money, I can save money by doing the right thing. How about that? That's kind of an oxymoron, isn't it?
Right.
But if you let me show you and I've proven that it works, let me help you. Let me do it. And that's what I'm doing right now with the military and this administration, part of this administration on school feeding, because I think it's a huge opportunity, when you have children that have not been fed because the parents can't afford food and they go to school and they fall asleep because they're hungry and they're not getting the things they need. It's our responsibility to make sure that happens. And I take that personally and very responsibly.
Yeah, exactly. And Robert, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're on the same page here. You know, I think better food would impact morale, mental health, and performance for individuals, service members, first responders, and just regular people.
Everything you just said there, amplify that by 10 and put it, all those things you just said, and then put it in the school system. And it's educating the families. We shouldn't be just feeding the kids at school. We should be looking at how do we feed them when they go home? And how do we take care of them when they go home as well? Because it's a vicious cycle. One thing I find about the military is this: we can do all the training we want. We have the best military in the world, and we really do. We have the best non-commissioned officers that make decisions on the spur of the moment, right? And we've had that since World War One, way before then. But if we feed them well there, make sure they're taken care of at home, and then put that to the civilian side of the equation, our society, we wouldn't have so much disparity, right? We would have, look, and I've seen it myself. I graduated. I'm going off a bit, but there's a reason I'm going off here. We graduated 250 kids in Puerto Rico from 16 to 18 years old, a National Guard program that they run. It cost $7 million. They put them into school for 22 weeks. It's like a military academy. They come out, but they get their high school diploma, and they get an opportunity to be hired by somebody in the first responder military, that area, within the first year of graduation, right? I've been to those kids' families' houses. I know why people, and I don't agree with it, I know why they sell drugs. I do. Because some people have to do that to survive. It's not their fault. Some choose it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not everybody in the same basket. But I've seen where people have to live, where they're taking an extension cord from a main line, an extension cord you buy at Home Depot from a main electric line to put into the house to get electricity. So I can empathize to a point, but I think we as a country, not just the government, because they come and go, right? They should all be doing it. But as a country, we have to stand up and be better with each other to push for these things, because people push for a couple of months, then they give up. And that's the problem. No, you can't give up. It took me 14 years to get to this point with the military. I'm never giving up. I'm never giving up on school kids because that's the future. the business of this country, the running of this country are by the kids, not us. We're getting old now, right? These kids coming through the next generation, when we talk about AI, look at all those people that went to school for computers that, 20, 30 years in the computer business, and now AI is already taken over. And what's going to happen to them? We're going to reskill the labor now and make it better. And I think that's the love of what I get every morning when I wake up. I get to do something good every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a good place to be, right?
Hey, I sleep well at night. I wake up happy in the morning and I go to bed happy at night. And I'm blessed. So,
So that's it. So, Robert, I'm going to take you somewhere real quick. So, my wife and I used to watch you relentlessly on Restaurant Impossible.
uh-huh.
Now, viewers often describe your approach on Restaurant Impossible as being tough or tough love.
Yep.
Now, looking back now, how much of that intensity came from helping others versus the pressure you were carrying yourself?
That's an amazing question. Ooh, that's a really interesting question because I think there's a lot to unpack there. I think proving oneself. Um, I wrote Restaurant Impossible. I wrote Dinner Impossible. It was real. Both of them shows as real as you see the raw emotion, the crying, the I mean, the stories we can't even tell you, the suicide of a young kid, the rape of one of the restaurateur's wives, things that happened while I was there that I unpacked while talking. And you notice the first 6 seasons were about 22 minutes long. And people started to watch it and say, well, that's not long enough. So we went to a 44 minutes show, 340 or 50. Don't hold me to the number because I can't remember it off the top of my head, but somewhere around that number. And everyone was so different and so unique. And what I chose to do is what I did in the military. Don't tell me a thing about the people. I want them to tell me and I want to figure it out. And if you watch the first 6 seasons of Restaurant Impossible, I'm very no nonsense. I don't want to hear you failed. Just listen to what I'm telling you and you will succeed. And I've watched myself not recently, but over the years. And you'll notice after season 6, I actually change. I change from this hard nosed, punch you in the face, not literally, but kind of informational guy with no feeling because it's just a restaurant. I changed from this I don't know, James Cagney kind of guy into just listening. I really started to listen. And when I listened, I found I got more information than me just pounding them, right? Just listen, let them tell what was your original idea behind this? Why did you want to do it? Da, 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 da. But what it actually did was psychological. They started to trust me and not fear me because I was going to make them look bad in TV. It couldn't make them look any worse because there was rats in the. I mean, it was bad in reality. But I found after those 6 seasons, then I started to go a little lighter. I was getting more of the story, which actually became better television because now I'm getting to understand that the daughter couldn't go to nursing school because she had no money and she had to be the server in the restaurant and da da da. And by the way, these are all things that you'll never know, but I paid for those colleges and I paid for those refits. And outside of television, I paid for houses that were going to be taken away. And that's not why I'm telling you this. It's because I became a better listener. And I found that listening actually works. The more you listen, the more you find out, the more you can actually help. And that was slow coming for me because I was in the military, just like, get it done. And I run my business the same way now. I'm like, okay, tell me why you think this. What's the problem? What's the solution? Why do you think that's the solution? And do you think it's going to work? And then I'll say my piece and I'll say, okay, if you believe that, I'll stand by you, go and do it. Um, so that was a big change for me. Restaurant Impossible was an amazing thing. My daughter, there's one episode that is a young man, 300-pound, autistic, one of only I think 300 at a rare genetic disease. Was going to die 2 years in. We're about to give the restaurant back, and the husband and wife are there, and she's sobbing. And I'm like, why is she sobbing? This is a great restaurant. I would want this restaurant. I mean, it was beautiful. And they were being evicted. And she gave me the envelope and said, we're being evicted. And this is the only home that our son, LJ, has ever known. And he's going to die. So I called the producer. It's on the show. I called the producer just instinctively. It wasn't for television. I said, listen, I know you're not here. I need 10 grand. Just say yes. And don't ask me why. And he said, why? I said, I told you, don't ask me why. He said, yes. I said, good. I wrote a check, my own check for 20,000. We had it sent to their mortgage company so they weren't evicted. LJ did die 2 years later. They sold the restaurant. I'm still in touch with the family. He's on every live show that I do around the globe with our military. The clip of that show is in there. And I'll tell you why. It wasn't for the $20,000. It saved a life. They got rid of the restaurant. That's a win for me to get out of debt, right? It was the fact that my daughter was 16 years old and she was there for the first time ever at one of these things. And LJ comes in a wheelchair. He's 300-pound. And I'd taken a door basically off a side station where they put knives and forks and glassware. And just before opening, I said, to Tom, my builder, find me a picture with the colors that we put up and put a picture up there. So we went outside, found a picture, put it up, we opened the door. Well, little did I know, when LJ came in after this whole scenario with the envelope and the money, and he jumped out of the chair and bowled me over on the floor. I mean, I'm pretty stocky, I'm pretty big. This guy kicked me on the floor. And basically, this picture was something that he had painted at the Make-A-Wish Foundation years and years prior. And it was his picture, and he was so proud of it. And that's why I keep the whole segment, because that was life. It's the first time I think anybody ever cried on Food Network. I sobbed like a little baby. And my daughter sobbed. And I said, oh, family is worth more than all this, And that's true. And that's why I keep it in there, to remind myself everything we do every day is affecting people, and we don't even know it's affecting people. And
Wow.
it's a TV show, but it's some to tune in for the decor with Tanya, and some because I'm arguing with Tom or Tanya, some because of money, some because of the food, some because of the look. But that show, we have not filmed Restaurant Impossible in 3 years. It's still running. It's still the highest watched show on Food Network, on Paramount Plus and whatever. They wanted me to bring it back last year in Canada, and I said no, because I want to do it with my people. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it here in the US. And hopefully it'll come back one day, I hope. Things come round and round, because I felt it really changed lives. I can tell you, people that were $1 million in debt that are now still alive today, running their restaurant, 3.4 million after $1 million in debt, Cerritos, California, New Hampshire. For all the ones that closed, I've got the same amount that's still open. And that's a win for me. It's not television. It's changing lives and fortunes of people. That's why the foundation has a entrepreneurship piece to it. We have food trucks. We teach people how to do business, because I feel that, all that is, right? You give a man a fish, he'll eat a meal. You teach a man to fish, he'll live forever, kind of thing.
Right.
So I believe in that. And maybe I'm old fashioned. I don't know, but I do believe in it.
Yeah, and you're right on point. You're right on point with it. So let's talk about this. You've led teams, restaurants, and organizations. What's the biggest leadership mistake you had to unlearn?
Thinking you're right all the time. I think, look, when you're successful and you have a blueprint for success, it's very hard for somebody to step in. And you have to remember what we've just talked about. I was young and in charge of big things at a young age and took no nonsense. So when somebody comes in that's, 20 or 30 years older than you and says, "Oh, that's why are you doing that?" I'm like, "Because I know it works, and obviously you don't because it's not work for you. So I'm showing you something different." I think again, I go back to that listening piece. Sometimes I've been described as mean, right? And I'm okay, and I answer that a lot. "Why are you so mean?" And I said, "Well, okay, let me put you in a position. I've got 2 days to change 30 years of habit, and you've lost $1 million, and I need you to make money day 2 you open, because it's real. It's 48 hours, and then you're open. There is no BS like all this other TV stuff that you see that's being after Restaurant Impossible, and you know the ones I'm talking about. I take it personally. I spend 48 hours up while they're building and doing, and I'm ripping walls out. I'm teaching them how to run a business. Are they tired? Are they fed up? Yeah, I don't care. And I think for me, I do care. That's the wrong statement. I don't care that you're tired because I really want to get it over to you. But for me, the biggest thing I've learned is yes, I have a blueprint for success. I've got 19 of those companies that have been successful because of that blueprint. But not everybody runs on the same capacity as I do. Right? And I forget that sometimes. I'm like, if I get something, I'm an ankle biter. If I get something and I need to fight it and I need to get it done, I'm around your ankles till you don't get rid of me until I've got it done. And I sometimes forget that not everybody's wired like that. And that's the biggest thing I've had to slow down and really focus on who do I put in a position to run companies, whatever they are, drones, humanoids, self-ordering platform, all the things that we do, and food and whatever. Who's in charge, and are they the right person to motivate a team to get things done while they're not there? And I think that's the hardest thing to learn is that leadership is not you doing everything. Leadership is you directing, holding people accountable, but letting them have enough rope to go and do what they need to do. And then if they're getting slightly off track, you can kind of, gently bring them back and ask the questions, why are you doing it that way? And that's hard for me because I know how I would do it. And it's proven, but you, you know how your mother says you got to let them make the mistakes so they can learn? That's the hardest part for me as a leader to do because I don't want to see them fail. But failure is part of success. And I failed many times and I've got back up and dusted myself off. But some people don't do that. And that worries me when that happens because I'm the one that's got to pick them up and make them feel good about themselves without babying them is maybe that's not the right word, but telling them the truth. Why did you fail? This is why you failed. And that's always hard for anybody, to hear.
Yeah, you gotta always have the hard conversations, The team that's under me, they always say, "Man, you're always 5 steps ahead of us." Well, I'm kind of different because when you go home, you go on with your life. When I go home, I'm still pondering,
Yeah.
pondering, and pondering, and then I come up the next day and, yeah, I'm 5 steps ahead of you. But I think the biggest thing about having a successful team is, servanthood is one of the biggest things of leadership. And I
Totally.
think when you're building a great team, it's all about putting the right people in the right places.
Yeah. And I would go one step further. It's not nurturing those people. My job, our job, I should say, as leaders, is to prepare somebody to take your job, and nurturing that talent that may think differently than you. And we're in so many different diverse things. I don't know, you know, how a humanoid will. I don't know how to put a drone together. I don't know how to, you know, I have to go to people that are way smarter than me and sit there and listen. And one of the things I found the most interesting through television is sitting with, Michael Eisner, who used to run Disney, who has his own production facility and TV and owns a football club and all this kind of stuff. Getting the money. It's just I sat with him for 2 hours and he wanted to talk about my TV show and this. And I'm like, no, I want to understand you. I want to understand why do you make these decisions and how did you make decisions and how did you come up with these things at Disney? Because that fascinates me. Because the more I can pick your brain, and I have a brain trust of people, they're not in my companies, they're in lots of different things that I meet, probably, I would say, every night for 10, 15 minutes on a Zoom call like this. And we just go back and forth on silly stuff, but it's not silly stuff, it's real stuff. And I walk away and I'm like, oh my God, I've got a great friend, Mick Hunt, who I met doing this, by the way, who's become one of my closest friends, helps me with the foundation. But, we back and forth each other on lots of things, not just current affairs and then da 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 da, but it always plays back into, all right, what is our legacy? What have we done to change it today? And do we need to do something different with our companies or speaking where do you live?
I am not too far from the school in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
I live in Raleigh.
You've got to come March 11th. I'm going to send you an invite
Okay.
to Greenville, South Carolina.
That's my hometown.
Well, we
Grew up
have an
there.
event there. Mick and I have an event there on the 11th of September, 11th of March. I'm going to send you an invite
Okay.
privately. You'll see what I mean about changing the world. It's about influencing people that want to change, just don't know how to change. And it's really, really cool. And I think you would get a kick out of it and you would have something to add to it just because of your lifestyle and your life experience. And I think that's where like-minded people get to change the world.
Absolutely. Send it to me. Send it to me.
I will do. Absolutely.
So, Robert, let's talk about leadership. You have 4 leadership pillars that
Yep.
you mentioned in your leadership book, Overcoming Impossible. Can you share those pillars?
Well, I think first and foremost is empathetic leadership, right? What does that mean? It means that Miss Emily, that works in one of my companies, has an autistic son. I have to know that she has an autistic son. She comes to work one day and she's not herself. And I say, hey, are you okay? What's going on? And she said, oh, nothing, Robert. It's just, I got some family stuff. And I'm like, oh, I'm using names now. Is it Frank? Yes. I said, what's going on? Tell me what's going on with Frank. She tells me, I'll tell you what, go home. When you're ready to come back to work, you tell me. We're going to pay you. We're going to take care of you. You need anything from me, you let me know because that's my job. What did I do there? Not only did I acknowledge, number one, I know the names of all my employees, but number two, I know their family status. I know the families. I know their dependents, et cetera, et cetera. It does one better. I've just created the most loyal employee you will ever have. Why? I care for her. I care for her family. I'm not taking any money. You're not taking time off. I'm going to pay you for the time that you're off. You're not getting any deductions. And you come back when you're ready. Now, that has to have a degree of trust, right? Because I have to know your family situation, the same as you know mine. So when I opened a restaurant in Vegas, I took my daughters out. They were young, my wife out. I took the whole staff. I took 4 months to train them. I allowed the staff to ask any question of my wife, of me, of my people. So when people ask him in the restaurant, what is he really like? He's always sitting over there in the corner. Or this is his family, this is his daughter. And that's empathy. That's understanding that we're not machines and we can't just show up every day and be the best we can be. Authenticity is another one. You can't be up and down and angry and mad and sad and quiet. You got to be level. And if either one of whichever you are, as long as you say the same all the time, at least people know what to expect. I'm not saying you should be angry or sad or da da da. But I think authenticity, and if you look at what I do on TV, and when I meet people in real life, they say, oh, you're the same. You're intense, dude. I'm not mean, I'm intense. I am very intense, no matter who I meet with. Because if you give me a task, I want to succeed in that task. So I think you've got authenticity, you've got empathy. There's a lot more I could go into, but They're my two biggest things of the pillars that we talk about, lots of pillars, but there is 4 in the book, but there's a lot more. But they're my two biggest things I follow the most. We don't hire people in our company. It's really interesting. So many years ago, and why I tell you, and this is part of the pillars, trust is huge. That's another pillar. My wife said to me, "You shouldn't hire these 2 people." And I said, "Oh, no, look, they've got big money jobs." And I said, "I'm going to hire them." And she said, "You're making a mistake." And I said, "Well, I'll take that under advisement. Thank you." And they lost me $3 million, which at that time was a lot of money. It still is a lot of money, but they lost me $3 million, and it was my fault. And I blamed myself because I give them the ability without checking. That was my fault. I took full responsibility there. I had to fire them. Then I had to go back to my wife, which is even worse, and say, "You know what, babe? You were absolutely right." So when we're going to hire somebody, I have a close team of about 18, then senior leadership about 60, and then a lot more from there. So the first 16 people get to talk to you for an hour. They make their decision, right? The last person is my wife, who has nothing to do with any of my businesses, but her gut instinct is way better than I will ever be. My 2 chefs that travel the globe, we're just about to go to Djibouti and Bahrain. We just come back from Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Rhoda, Spain, Naples, and Sigonella, Italy. So we travel a lot with the military and bases. And they are way better chefs than I will ever be. And I always say this, kudos where kudos is due. I don't do all the heavy lifting, and they do all that. But that's part of the process of leadership, is not being threatened by somebody that's better than you. And I feel that, we go into these, and I deal with CEOs of big companies, American Airlines, Walmart, all these companies. When I go in there, this is me. I don't know famous people. I went to a meeting. I didn't know Patti LaBelle. I didn't know George Clooney. I didn't know Clint Eastwood, because I didn't grow up like that, right? Didn't watch movies. We didn't have a TV. So when I meet these people, and this is a true statement, I went to Doug McMillan, he's just retiring now, the chairman of the CEO of Walmart, I should say, and I was going to do a Saturday meeting. And I'd been traveling overnight, 6 hours. I flew in. I got time enough to shower, shave, cut myself shaving. And I went there with my normal blue shirt and jeans on. And this guy comes up to me and says, "Oh, thanks for getting, up early in the morning." I hadn't been to bed. I'd been from one live show the other side of the country to do this. And it was a meet and greet with 2,000 employees. And he said, "Thanks for coming." I said, "Well, you're welcome, thanks for having me. And I said, "What do you do?" And he said, "Oh, I'm the CEO of Walmart." And everybody went, "Oh my God, Robert doesn't know the CEO of Walmart." And I said, and I just, without missing a beat, I said, "That's a great gig if you can get it, huh?" And he just burst out laughing. Everybody else kind of relaxed, and we've been friends ever since. Because I'm not intimidated by, or am I enamored by movie stars or CEOs of companies? They're no different to us. They just have a different perspective, and maybe they make more money. I don't know. But if you have a platform and you don't use it, then I don't want nothing to do with you, because you have a platform and you can do some good with it. Join the team. We'll do it together. But if you don't want to do it, I don't want nothing to do with you.
That's it. I just want people that's around me that we're pulling from the same rope.
Yep.
Doesn't
That
matter the money,
absolutely.
the status, or whatever. We're pulling from the same rope, the same direction. That's all that matters to me, man.
I make eggs. They're expensive eggs, but then all that money goes somewhere, not to me. So I like it.
Right. So, Robert, do you have any other new and exciting projects you're working on?
The feeding program for me right now is the big platform that we're working on with the military, because I want to really change that in the way we buy and the way we educate and the way we with schools. I am looking at a couple of TV projects, nowhere near complete or anywhere to talk about, but it's to do with entrepreneurship and helping people. I mean, I think everything in my life since those early days we talked about has been about, and you've been in the same way, right? You grow up a certain way, you have a platform, you use the platform to help other people. And in doing so, it's like, I don't know, it's fulfilling to me. It's got nothing to do with money. It's got something to do with I go to bed at night knowing that I put, those 250 kids home or fed or in Wilmington with food. We send the kids home with food and the uniforms. And by the way, that school is 96% success rate to colleges, which is unbelievable. Wow. Unbelievable. So I think for me, that's the why do I get up is the foundation. So all my work that I do with the military is unpaid. I don't get paid for anything. It's all through my foundation. The foundation leases me to the military for $0. And I try and change the world. And I don't think I'll ever stop trying to change the world. So, if somebody comes up with the next project, which is school feeding for me is another part because I'm already in that feeding piece. We're looking at some TV stuff, as I said, with some other folks, which I'm kind of interested in, but we haven't got anywhere with it. And just living life. And, I'm 60 years old. What have I done? If I was to die tomorrow, God forbid, knock on wood, what have I left this world? What have I left it? Did I leave it better than I came into it with? And there's the hell yes answer there, right? But I still think we've got so much work to do. And I look for people like yourself and people that have influence to get the brain trust together and say, okay, what are we going to do? And where do we need to do it? What is the place that needs the most help? And how can we do it that doesn't bastardize the intent? That makes sense. We're going to build 25,000 homes over here and, it's going to be run by, a Venezuelan drug lord, then that's pointless.
Right.
And I'm just making that up, by the way. But if I can build some homes and put families and get veterans off the street and get them health care and benefits and stuff that they deserve, that everybody deserves, by the way, then I'm going to fight for that and use that power and get people that are way smarter than me to do that. I don't know. I'm not a do-gooder for all causes, but I'm a do-gooder for a lot of them.
Yeah, that's it. And think about it. I think maybe you have something in common is that, I just don't want to leave this place and leave it average.
Yeah.
I want to leave it a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a grandson, Griffin, who's 7 weeks old. And I want,
Congratulations.
yeah, my personal thank you. And it's cute. Takes after his grandpa. Not really, but I want him to grow up in a world that's good. It's not all evil. And you see so much evil and so much hate and so much confusion. And it's all started with these phone things, and the internet and the AI. You don't even know what's real anymore. So I just want to be a change agent for as much change as we can make and neglect a group of like-minded people.
Exactly. Exactly. So, Robert, this is what I have. I have what I call rapid fire questions.
You ain't fast enough for me, Reggie. Come on now.
Well, let's try it. Let's see.
All right, let's go. Let's go.
All right. What is your favorite food?
Roast chicken, mashed potatoes.
All right. A serious question. Are pancakes ever allowed in Robert Irvine world, or is it a hard no?
Very infrequently. When I'm on the road doing show and I know I'm going to be going hard, like 2 days straight, I'll eat pancakes. I've never eaten a waffle in my life before. I don't like them. I'm not a syrupy, sugary kind of guy. I've never had a soda in my life.
Wow.
Don't like it. I would rather sparkling water. But pancakes, yeah, I'm okay with pancakes occasionally, but
Okay.
not
I
real.
saw somewhere where it says you like pancakes.
I do when I'm on the road.
Okay. Gotcha.
If I'm on the road, I'll go to. So it's funny. People say, "Oh, world class chef." I eat in IHOP
Right.
or Waffle House because I can see the guy cooking it right there or the girl. And yes, there's eggs and there's mess on the, but I can see it. So I'm okay with that. So all those haters that don't like it, get over it. But yeah, I mean, my team, we work out at 5 in the morning. We'll go for breakfast at IHOP or Waffle House. I get some pancakes or we share a pancake or whatever. But at home, I never. I'm very, very, my wife is very particular in what we eat. I travel 345 days a year, so I'm not home a lot.
Wow.
But when I'm home, it's a salad. My wife makes balsamic dressing. She makes the salad. She pork chops, chicken, one of the above, protein with a salad. And that's pretty much every day I'm home. Again, I drink coffee once a day. The rest is black tea. So I'm a boring person.
Yeah, we got a lot of common, man. It's scary. so, so what's one truth that failure taught you?
One truth. I don't think there's ever been one truth. I failed on numerous occasions, not only in business, but in life. I think failure. So I'll give you two sides. Business wise, understand what it costs and what the market will bear when you put a product in the market, because I failed at that a few times. I've always had some amazing, in the book, we talk about L's and W's, losses and wins. So you can have 1,000 losses, but one win negates those 1,000 losses, right? And then in life, be careful who you and how you speak to people, because those people you meet when you're here, when you next meet them, they're up there and they're the decision makers. And you don't understand that as a young kid. But as you get older, you realize that, those people are smarter than you and they become CEOs and, presidents and this and that and the other. And you were the guy that was mean at that time and you said something that annoyed them or whatever. You may have felt it at that point, but I've learned to pick my battles and win the wars.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense because you're talking about be careful when you meet people.
Yeah.
The Bible says, mind how you entertain a stranger because it very
It's
well
just
could be
so funny.
dangerous.
I used to, years ago, when people said, "Oh," and I get it. I travel the globe literally with the military, and I've met, probably, and this is an exaggeration, but a lot of the world. I've met a lot of the world. That's a big exaggeration, but a lot of people. And they say, "I remember I took this picture of you when I was 6 years old or 3 years old, and they're now 30, right?" And I'm like, "Oh, was I nice to you?" That's my first question. Because I never used to be that nice. I'd be like, very like, yeah, that was nothing to do with TV. That was just my demeanor of that protection, not letting anybody near you. And I always say, "Oh, was I nice?" And I just finished the Food and Wine Festival up in Connecticut, which I've been doing for 22, 23 years. And I've seen kids grow up, from that to that, and they've got their own kids now. And I'm surprised. Always says, "Oh," and I make it a point to talk to everybody, even if it's going to help you put your bag up, good morning, whatever it is, because you never know. And I'll tell you a quick story, and I'll be quiet. But a young kid, Dominican Republic, came to me. I won't use his name. I'd been in a bar one night after work in Atlantic City. He was sitting outside. I'd done very well. I'd got a BMW 7 Series and had a couple of drinks, was going to go home. And the kid was sitting outside the bar. And for whatever reason, and I know the reason, by the way, I'll tell you that in a second. I said, "What are you sitting there for?" He's like, "I've got no place to go." I said, "Well, when did you have your last meal?" He's like, "Oh, I haven't had a meal for whatever, a couple of days." I said, "All right, get in the car." Um, I don't know why I did. I took him to a diner 3 miles from my house and I had breakfast with him. And that was till 3 o'clock in the morning, just talking from, where he come from, his background. I said, "Where are you staying tonight?" He says, "I've got nowhere to stay." I said, "Okay, there's a hotel here. I'm going to get you a hotel for a week. Um, if you need a job, come and see me tomorrow. Here's my business card." I was the chef at a casino, but I paid for the hotel. I said, "But you only get 1 week. That's it. And if you trash it, you pay for it and all that kind of stuff." I didn't know the guy. And I told my wife when I got home, I said, "I just did this." She said, "Why? He could have killed you." I said, "Nope. I was just told to stop and torture this kid." Anyway, long story short, I'm an executive chef in a hotel which does 784 million a year.
Wow.
I bring the kid in, he's dishwashing, he's cleaning floors. And every day he would come to me and he would bring me a recipe and say, hey, I think you should put this in this, we had 13 restaurants, da, da, da. I said, yeah, it's not ready for that. Go back. You can use my computer, here's my books. You can, and he studied all the time, brought me things every day. Then he started cooking. So I made him an assistant cook. Then I made him a cook. Then I made him a chef, a sous chef. Then an executive chef. Now he's running the same casino I run as an executive chef with 2 kids, 2 cars, and a house.
Wow.
That to me is the epitome, and I told you yesterday, that's why it's the epitome of giving people a chance. And he could have gone the other way, right? He could have stabbed me, could have killed me, could have, not that I don't think he would, but he could have gone the other way. It could have been a different scene. I remember when he first started making money, he got this little apartment, and he said to me, "Hey, yeah, I need your help. I got to plaster the walls, and I got to paint in this." I said, "Yeah, come on, we'll do it after work." So I did. I went, and he was so proud of this little apartment, 700 square feet, but it took me back to where I was, and I did it gladly, right? And now he's one of my closest friends, and his kids are all grown up, and he's in his mid-50s. Yeah, I just, again, that was a God moment. That was a moment that was put in there to test me. And I believe that. And here we are. We laughed about it yesterday because I talk to him every week. And I laugh about these things that happen in your life that you least expect it. I could have just got in the car, drove home, and be done with it, right? But it wasn't meant to be.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Man, I got so many stories I can tell you about stuff like that. But now I got one more question on this rapid fire question.
yeah, go for it.
Right? Now your wife is an ex-professional wrestler.
Yes, she is.
Who would win in a wrestling match, you or your wife?
Oh my God, she's brutal. She is probably one of the toughest male or females I've ever met in my life. Smart, beautiful, tough, intelligent, all those. I mean, there's so many acronyms I can use with her and words that she taught me patience. She's taught me so much, but she would definitely win. I remember she once hit me in San Diego when I was going to watch her wrestle. I come out of the shower and sitting on the bed, and she came, they call it a clothesline or something, and she hit me, and I'm like, what the hell was that? And she said, I'm just showing my love for you. I'm like, well, don't love me anymore. That hurt, so yeah. She's probably one of the best human beings on the planet.
Yeah. Great. Great. So lastly, Robert, where can people purchase your books, your products, or follow your journey and support your foundation?
So the foundation, they can go onto robertirvinefoundation.org, one word. On Twitter, it's at Robert Irvine. On Instagram is at Shep Irvine. And look, you can Google it. You can find me anywhere. The books are online. The cups are online. All the money, even the French bars that we have out there, and the money goes to charity. So not hard to find, I should say. So there you go.
There you have it, Robert Irvine. Robert, man, thank you so much for everything you do. I mean, man, I don't know what to say. I mean, just the world needs more people like you.
Well,
And
I think, as I said, it's like-minded people that do really well.
exactly.
So I appreciate you, and thanks for spending some time with me, and I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for listening to Real Talk with Reginald D. If you enjoyed listening to Real Talk with Reginald D, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. See you next time.